Hey there, it's Jeff Walker, and I want to welcome you to the Launch Workshop. If you're ready to launch an online business, course, product, service, or a book, this workshop's all about getting you launched. I've had almost 1 million people go through this workshop since 2005, and they've launched all kinds of products, services, courses, books, even entire businesses in almost every market niche in every corner of the world that you can think of. So this is our third video. It's the Launch Blueprint. I think you're going to love it. Now, if you missed the first two videos in the workshop, I highly recommend you stop right now and go watch them. They really are required viewing for anyone who wants to start an online business or grow the business that they already have. I want you to get the full value of this workshop, so you should really go watch those videos in order. Don't worry, I'm still gonna be waiting for you here. Okay, so this video is all about next steps. It's about you moving forward. My job is to have a bigger vision for your future. And the way to get you there is with action. So in this video, we're going to walk you forward in your launch planning, and we're going to do that with my Launch Blueprint. You can see my version 1.0 of the blueprint on the wall back behind me, but it's evolved quite a bit since then. I put it into a PDF that's a lot more readable than that board is, and it's a lot more detailed. There's a link to that PDF on this page, and you should go download it right now, and then you can follow along. Now, I've got two warnings for you. The first is that this blueprint, well, it can look pretty intense. There's a lot there, and it's really detailed. So please don't be intimidated by that. It's all about baby steps. It's all about progress, not perfection. I didn't get here overnight, and you don't need to either. You don't need to know all of it. You certainly don't need to learn it all, and you definitely don't have to do it all. But I wanted to put it all in there so you could find all the parts that apply specifically to you. So the second warning is that I'm going to move really quickly in this video. I'm not going to cover every single part of the blueprint, every piece of it, because we've got a lot of ground to cover, and frankly, time's really growing short. It's almost time to get started. So in this first video in the workshop, I taught you about the Sideways Sales Letter, and I share with you how I started as a stay-at-home dad. Our family was just really struggling back then. And I used the Sideways Sales Letter to start my business, and really it changed our family's fortunes. And in the second video, I showed you the 3 primary types of launches. And I told you about how I lost my first business overnight and how I had to start all over from scratch, and I used a seed launch. The part I didn't tell you about is what happened after that. When I did my first launch, that was, well, it was truly epic, at least by my standards. That launch was for my Product Launch Formula 2.0 coaching program. That was way back in 2008. And I used everything I'd learned about launches up until that time. Now that launch did $1 million in sales in the first 53 minutes. It went on to do almost $4 million in sales in 34 hours. Now that was incredible. It was almost unbelievable for me. Now, of course, not all that was profit, but even after I paid all my costs, it was way more success than I ever dreamed I would achieve. I went and I bought a mountain bike to celebrate. And then I tried to figure out where to go from there. I mean, to tell you the truth, I felt a bit lost for a while. I hit every goal that I had when I first started out, and frankly, I needed to find some new goals. So after a lot of soul searching and seminars and meditation and retreats and journaling, I ended up with 2 things that were true for me. First, the thing that drives me is making a huge positive impact on the world. And second, the best way to make that impact was by helping entrepreneurs build their businesses. You see, I believe entrepreneurs, well, I think they're the future of humanity. They're the people who are driving human progress. They're the ones that they're creating enormous positive impact in the world. And by the way, I've got a really diverse definition of entrepreneurs, including all the traditional business creators, along with authors, artists, experts, coaches, online teachers, and leaders. I'm talking about creators. And helping those people reach bigger audiences and make a bigger impact is why I do what I do. That's my big why. Now, don't get me wrong, I've got a great lifestyle and a great income, and I love all that. But the thing that gets me out of bed in the morning is growing my impact. And that's why I'm so passionate about sharing my launch formula, and why I'm so excited about sharing this blueprint with you. Because by now, you know that you need to launch. You know that every successful business, every successful brand, every successful product starts with a successful launch. You can't start slowly. You just can't depend on hope marketing. That's hope marketing, where you put all your time into creating your product or service or your book or your website or your blog, and You just hope that it does well. If you're going to have success, you need to launch, and that's why we're here. Now, one of the things I'm going to cover in this launch blueprint is what we call the launch parachute. This is what that means. This launch formula is so powerful, and it's got so many fail-safes built in that you don't need to get everything perfect. You can make mistakes. As long as you follow the blueprint, you follow the formula, you get the core pieces right, you can make mistakes. Personally, I've made mistakes in every launch I've ever done, and I'm sure I'll continue to make mistakes in every launch I do. But with the launch parachute, we've got you covered. Really at the core, my formula is about connecting with your market and delivering huge value. It's about finding out what your people want and then giving it to them in a non-slimy, high-integrity way. And it's that in a way that's also super effective and makes lots of sales. Okay, let's go ahead and get started with your launch blueprint. So first, I just want to give you a big picture overview of the blueprint. This is what it looks like at the highest level. And then we can drill down another level and another level. So as you can see, there's a lot here. Of course, if I went through everything, this video would be hours long. So I'm going to move quickly in this video, and I'm going to cover some of the big highlights. That's why I've got the PDF download on this page for you. You can download the blueprint and go through the entire thing to get all the details at your own pace. But in this video, I want to focus on the really high leverage points, especially the ones that keep coming up in all the comments and questions that everyone's been leaving for the first two videos. So going back to the main level here, you can see the blueprint starts with a big picture. And this is the high level strategy for your product or business launch. Then I've got the tactics, and that's where we drill down and get detailed on exactly why PLF is so powerful and how to put it in place. And then there's the 8 types of launches, including the 3 primary launches I covered in video 2. And definitely go check out video 2 if you haven't seen it already. There's a link to it at the top of this page. After that, I've got the big gotchas. And there's a lot here, so I split it up into 2 parts. This is where I'll answer a lot of questions that came in from the comments on the first 2 videos. Then we've got your launch path, and that's all about you moving forward in your next steps. Then the 4 freedoms, and that's something I talked about in the first video, and it's really why we're all here working with the product launch formula. Finally, I have a big resources section where I cover all the tools and resources to make this happen. Now, I put everything in its blueprint because I wanted you to get the true big picture overview of the entire PLF process. But to honor your time, in this first video, I'm going to focus on specific topics that keep on coming up. I've actually been trying to read every single comment, although I'll tell you what, in the last few days, they've been coming in so fast and furious that I gotta admit, I've been falling behind. That being said, I think I'll be able to answer most of the top questions as we go through the blueprint. Okay, let's dive into the big picture strategy, because there's a lot here. I like to look at PLF as the opposite of hope marketing. Hope is where you work on a business or a product, and then you just put it out in the market and you hope that it's going to work. The thing is, there's just too much at stake here. If you're going to put in your time, your energy, and your money into building something, why would you ever depend on hope? Why wouldn't you follow a proven, structured, sequenced process to get people excited about your product or your service or your work or your business ahead of time before you actually launch? That's how you build momentum in sales fast. You don't want to start slowly. You don't want to get to launch day and hope it goes well. In fact, the best time to plan your launch is before you start creating or building your product or your service or your offer. Now, what if you could do that in a non-slimy, non-hypey, non-used car salesman way? That's what the formula is all about. One of the ways you do this is by creating what I call a crushing offer. This is an offer that's just so good, it's almost impossible to refuse. This is a huge part of the launch, and since your pre-launch is super interactive, it's easy to tap into what your prospects want. After that, it's just a matter of giving it to them, and it makes the whole sale a lot easier. Now, lots of people wonder about having a list to launch to, and I'll cover this more in a few minutes. And then again in the next video in this workshop, video 4. But the reality is, the best way to build a list is with a launch. Whether you're just starting out with a seed launch, or if you're more advanced, the JV launch is basically the ultimate list builder. Let me give you a concrete example. the odds are at least 50-50 that a couple of weeks ago, you had never heard of me. Now you're watching my video and you're part of my community. That's because I'm doing a launch. Even if you're just starting out, it works the same way. When you do a launch, you start attracting prospects into your world with your pre-launch content, and that builds your list. And you don't end up with any old list. A launch will give you the most engaged, warmest list you can imagine because you deliver great free content during your launch. Okay, another huge big picture strategy is the massive position you get. I'll go into this more in video 4, but basically this means that doing one of these launches is the quickest way to become a recognized expert in your field, and that brings lots of extra benefits. Now on to the awesome product launch parachute. Now, I know that might sound a little funny, but it's important. This is the deal. You don't need to get all this perfect. You don't need to get all this right. You can make lots of mistakes. I like to say you can mess up 80% of this and you'll be okay. And now that's not a scientific number, but the point is that it's a very forgiving process. There's no single point of failure because your launch is a sequence and you're getting feedback every step of the way. And you have the time and the tools to get this right. That's a true luxury. Now, with launch stacking, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this because I covered it in video 2. If you haven't seen that one or you want to review launch stacking, go watch video 2. There's a link at the top of this page. The one thing I'll say about launch stacking is that once you learn this launch process, you'll keep using it over and over. It will become the core of your business DNA. Think of it as your marketing operating system, and it will keep on growing with you, and the results will keep on growing. Okay, so moving on to the peel-off tactics. The mental triggers and the sequences are the heart of the product launch formula. I covered these pretty extensively in video 1. These are the things that make peel-off timeless. That's why it's been working since I started developing it in 1996 and since I started teaching product launch formula in 2005. Sometimes people ask me if the launch formula is going to stop working or if the market will get saturated. But the reality is that the core formula for telling a great story is thousands of years old, and it doesn't change. The formula is the same, and it's tied to the core way our brains work, and it's not going to change. Some of the specific tools are going to change over time. For example, we couldn't use online video when I first started out because it basically didn't exist. And I guarantee that the tools we use in our launches will continue to evolve. But once you learn peel-off, you'll keep using it for as long as you're an entrepreneur. Since we covered the sequences and triggers in video 1, I'm going to move along. However, be sure to check out the Blueprint PDF for more details. Now, let's move on to offers. And there's one big thing I want to focus on with offers. This was a lesson I learned very early on in my business. And I think this lesson was literally one of the most important things I've ever learned in business. If you take nothing else from this workshop but this one lesson, then the time you've invested in this training will pay you back 100 times over. Now here it is. You need to be absolutely ruthless about only selling what the market wants, not what you think the market wants, or even worse, what you think the market needs. Now I know this seems obvious, but it's absolutely crazy how many people make this mistake. And if you've had trouble in the past in business, I bet you might well have been making this very mistake. This is one of the most powerful hidden benefits of the launch process. If you've been watching these launches from the outside and you're trying to reverse engineer the formula, this is something you completely miss. You see, as we move through the pre-launch and even the pre-launch, you get all kinds of market intelligence into what the people in your market want and what they just don't care about. All the comments coming in, the reaction to your pre-launch content, the questions you get, they're like an X-ray or an MRI that tells you exactly what your prospects are looking for. That's what I call the launch conversation. And that conversation is a secret weapon that you use to create your crushing offer. You know, I've been on the inside of so many promotions and launches, and the thing I've seen over and over is that when you get the offer right, the sales just come flying in. The difference between an offer that really misses the mark and a great offer that hits the mark is just breathtaking. When you have a crushing offer, it almost sells itself. The launch and the launch conversation is how you get a crushing offer. Okay, moving on to the 8 types of launches. In video 2, I covered the 3 primary types of launches. That's the seed launch, the internal launch, and the JV launch. And I went deep on them. So be sure to review that video. But there are some other types of launches in Product Launch Formula that I haven't shown you yet. The quick launch is just what it sounds like. This is the fastest and simplest launch. It's great if you have an existing offer and you want to get a quick jump in sales. If you already have a business, this is a fantastic way to get some quick cash. The relaunch, well, that's particularly sweet because there's almost no work involved and you get a bunch more sales. Now, evergreen launches, that's a more advanced topic, and I've got an entire module on them in the Product Launch Formula coaching program. But this is basically how you have a perpetual launch going that keeps making sales whenever you have new people join your list. The shadow launch is where you launch other people's products as an affiliate or a JV partner. This is a great way to get started. And if you use this shadow launch, then you can immediately set yourself apart from all the other affiliates, and you can start building a real business. I've got a bonus module in the Product Launch Formula coaching program that goes deep on how to do this. Finally, there's the e-commerce launch. And yes, this process will actually work for e-commerce. There's some tweaks you need to make, but this can be one of the few ways to really stand out in the e-commerce world. So again, I'm moving quickly, but you've got to download to dig into all of these details. So let's move on to the big gotchas, because these are the things that could stop you dead in your tracks. The first one is the big list question. And I love that people are asking about this, because the reality is that no matter what your business is, you always need to focus on building your list. Whether you're just starting out or you have a huge business, you always need to focus on building your list and building your community. You know, if you don't have your first subscriber yet, well, you're exactly where I was when I started out. That's where everyone starts out. The key is to get started. There's this saying that I love. If you want to have a 100-foot tall tree in your front yard, when's the best time to plant it? The answer is 50 years ago. But that's tough to do if you don't have a time machine. So what's the second best time to plant that tree? Today. That's why now is the best time to start building your list. And the best way to build your list is with a launch. I broke this down in video 2, from just starting your list building with the seed launch all the way up to the list building on steroids. Is basically what that's the JV launch. It's just crazy. And one more thing. If you join me in the Product Launch Formula coaching program, you'll get my Launching Your List course, completely free. That's a free bonus with PLF. Okay, now on to the product question. I know a lot of people already have a product or service that will be a natural fit. And on the other hand, some people are like I was when I started out. They don't have a product yet. If that's where you're at, the answer is simple. You need a product. And the way to get a product is with the seed launch. That's the easiest way to create a product. If you can talk on the phone, you can create a product. Now, I'm a big fan of information-based products, or what I like to call wisdom products. They could be written, audio, or video. And pretty much every tool you need to create an information-based product is included free in just about every computer sold these days. Now, it doesn't have to be an information product. It could also be a service. You can launch almost any kind of product or service. I've got PLF students who've launched offline services, online products, offline products, actual physical widgets, books, artwork, membership sites, DVD courses, online courses, training, seminars, workshops, mastermind groups. It works for all of them. And I've got you covered here as well. I've also included a complete product creation course that you get free when you register for the Product Launch Formula coaching program. Now, the next gotcha is, well, sometimes say, Jeff, I know this all works for you, but I'm not a guru. You know, the thing is, no one is a guru when they start out. Your launch is how you get positioned in your market. It's how you're seen as an expert or a guru. When I started out, I was a stay-at-home dad. No one had any reason to listen to me. If you look at most markets, and probably your market, if you look at the top gurus, the top experts, the people with the most authority, they got there by launching. They got their positioning by doing a launch. And you definitely want that position of being seen as an expert or a guru or an authority or as a leader, because it makes your life easier. You can reach more people. You get more traffic. You get featured in other programs. You get asked for interviews. You get featured in books and media. You can attract partners. You can attract deals. You can charge higher prices. and you can make more money and help more people. I'll go into this more in the next video, in video 4. Next up, and this is a silly one. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this one. Some people look at me and they assume these launches only work if you're teaching about business or marketing. The reality is that it's actually easier if you're in other markets, like teaching people about playing guitar or meditation or Photoshop or mixed martial arts. The reason is simple. There's less competition in those markets. So what if you don't live in the US? Well, this formula has been used all over the world. The last time I opened up registration for Product Launch Formula, we had people join from 43 different countries. Wherever you live, people are going to be influenced by mental triggers and the sequences. And they're going to want to do business with people they know, like, and trust. That's what this formula gets you. It's funny, back in 2010, I started a super exclusive mastermind group. I call it my Platinum Plus Mastermind. And it's basically a group of my highest level clients. I've got 35 members from around the world. And when we started, there was a lot of competition to see who would have the first $1 million launch in the group. Well, here's the funny thing. The first $1 million launch was from Australia. Then we had one in France, then Brazil, then Canada, and then about a year or two later, we finally got one in the US. Now, that bruised some American egos, but I think that answers the question about whether it works outside the US. Here's another one. Sometimes people worry about having a high-priced product. They look at my business, and my Product Launch Formula coaching program is not inexpensive. Of course, I think PLF's an amazing deal because it changes people's lives. You know, I just talked to a woman who used PLF to do a launch in the cake decorating market. That launch did almost $100,000, and she was able to buy a house because of that launch. You look at that impact, and then you compare it to the cost and the time it takes to get, say, an MBA for tens of thousands of dollars, and PLF is, well, it's a downright bargain. So in any case, you don't need to have a high-priced product. Bigger markets often have lower prices. Now, I'm in a fairly small market compared to someone who's teaching guitar or training dogs. There's a lot more guitar players than there are entrepreneurs. Those larger markets, because they're so big, they often have lower prices. That doesn't mean you can't have an enormous success in those markets. For example, John Gallagher is one of my students, one of my most famous students. He went from having his family on food stamps to having a great business. His business is about teaching edible and medicinal plants and herbs, not a high dollar market. His primary product is a $10 a month membership site. Now, $10 a month doesn't sound all that impressive until you start to put thousands of people in that membership site. Think about it. If you had 1,000 people in a $10 a month membership site, that's $10,000 per month. And yes, PLF works great for membership sites. Okay, so some people think it won't work for their market, but I've already given you enough examples. The reality is that it works in just about any market. So the answer is yes. Yes, it will work in your market. Then there's this idea of this won't work for me. And this one is actually legit because it's like that Henry Ford saying, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. The reality is that the thing that holds people back more than anything is that they don't believe in themselves. If you've got that mental head trash going on, if you think you're just born to be a failure, then no formula is going to work for you. If you're convinced that it won't work for you, then it won't. But here's the thing. This formula has worked for so many people before you. If you put in the work, then I believe in you. And I've seen a lot of evidence to support this. I've got all kinds of proof. I've got all kinds of empirical proof of people just going for it and having it work for them because they started with the very basics. They started with the seed launch and then they move forward from there. If you're fighting that mental head trash, then this is my most sincere hope for you. That you just decide it's time to step up and make a change. Make this work. You can make that decision. You can change in an instant. It's just a decision, and I invite you to decide that now is your time. Okay, here's another legit got you. I'll never make $1 million. A lot of people say, Jeff, you've got a huge business. You were just telling me about $1 million in 53 minutes. I'm never going to be like that. I'm never going to make $1 million. You know, the fact is, you're probably right. Most people don't and won't make $1 million doing this. I've got thousands of clients. And there's a bunch that have done multi-million dollar and million-dollar launches, and they've made a fortune. They've made millions of dollars, but it's a small minority. Most people don't make millions. But here's the thing. You don't have to make $1 million to be super successful. When I started out, I was hoping to make $10,000 in a year. Remember, it's all about those baby steps. Once you start to build that first success, my experience is that entrepreneurs just keep on building and building, and they level up. In video 2, I talked about launch stacking, but this is even deeper. It's like there's a personal success stacking, where people just keep on building their successes. That's why I'm in this business. It's to create that kind of result for you. I love my business. I love my lifestyle, and I love the income that I have. It's just awesome. But when I see that impact that I've made on people, especially the folks that are just starting out, well, I just absolutely love it because I can remember when I was just starting out. Okay, let's move on to your launch path. I went pretty deep on this in video 2, so I'm just going to be covering the highlights. I've got 4 different paths here that cover about 90% of our PLF owners. First of all, if you have a current business, well, it's an awesome day to be you. That's because Product Launch Formula is almost instant leverage for you and your business. You can just put together a new offer or relaunch your current offer, and you're off to the races with an internal launch. There's really no better way to leverage up in your business. In fact, I'm willing to bet that if you put together a good launch, it's probably going to be the biggest month you've ever had. If you're in this category, then joining me in the Product Launch Formula coaching program is just, well, it's an absolute no-brainer. Next up, you might have an unleveraged business. By this, I mean you might be a coach, a practitioner, or a service provider or consultant, someone that works one-on-one with people. It could be in niches like health or wellness, spirituality, relationships, money, healing, real estate, business, sports, hobbies, or others. If that's you, then this is how you start to leverage your time and leverage your business. You want to be able to make more and help more people without working more hours. Your business, income, and lifestyle is limited by your hours as long as you have that unleveraged business. And we all have the same number of hours in our day. You need to have products, and you need to launch them. After all, you've already got clients, and some of them are going to want more from you. But you only have so much time. Building your products is easier than you think. The seed launch is amazing for that. I went deep into the seed launch in video 2. If you haven't watched video 2 yet, it's absolutely required viewing. It's required homework for you. There's a link to it at the top of the page. Next up, we have what I call the wantrepreneur. These are the people that are where I was when I started out. They want to start a business, but they don't have a product or a list or anything else. You want to start a business. You want more control in your life. You want the lifestyle. Maybe you want to be able to work from home. For me, it came down to supporting my family and creating freedom in my life. If that's you, and if you want to create freedom in your life, there's no better business than an online business. And if you want to get started, it really comes down to suspending your disbelief and trusting yourself and trusting in the process. Now you start with a seed launch to create your first product and get your first list. What doesn't work is just sitting there and thinking about it. That won't get you anywhere. You have to get in the game, and a seed launch is how you start. The seed launch, it's like a gift from the heavens that will get you in the game. Again, go watch video 2, and it gives you the whole path from seed launch all the way up through the JV launch. Next up is the artist path. Lots of my PLF owners are artists. They can be authors, writers, painters, sculptors, jewelers, or recording artists. And I'm sure I'm forgetting a few. When you're doing a launch for a book or other creative work, the way it usually works is your pre-launch is about the creation of your work. You're giving people a glimpse into the creation and how you're creating it. You're foreshadowing the work. For example, I had a contest for my book cover when I rolled out my book. And then if you're comfortable with this, you might even want to give a little glimpse into your life as an artist. People love that. You might be sitting there thinking, all I do is get up and I sit in front of a computer and I write all day, or I sculpt all day, or I paint all day. How exciting is that? The reality is that people have this romantic idea of what your life is like as an artist. They're really interested in you, and if you're willing to give a few glimpses behind the scenes of your work or your work in process or your creative process, they're going to eat that up, and you can have a very nice launch sequence. Okay, next we have the 4 freedoms. I covered this at the beginning of video 1, so I'm just going to touch on it. But this is why we do what we do. First is the financial freedom, the freedom of money, the freedom from want. This is where I was when I started out. I was just trying to help support my family. I started out of desperation. I just needed to find a way to support my family. But after you get this first level of freedom, that financial freedom, then you quickly move on to the other freedoms. For example, a part of being financially free is location freedom, where you can work and live and play where you want. An online business is great for that. I can literally work anywhere I can get an internet connection. I've done some of my biggest launches from coffee shops and even hotel rooms. And here's the thing, location and financial freedom is amazing, but it's just the start of the freedoms. Next is time freedom, the ability to work when you want, the ability to make more money and have a larger impact without working more hours, the ability to get away from work and take vacations, the ability to work less or more depending on what you want. You're working on your terms. Then comes the freedom of who you work with. I love this one because I have the most amazing clients in the world. When you have your own business and you get your marketing right, then you can pick and choose who you want to work with. And that makes your life a lot easier and more fulfilling. And finally comes the freedom of purpose. The freedom to do the work that you want, the work that inspires you, the work that you were put on earth to do. This is the freedom to do the stuff that is so fulfilling and effortless that time disappears when you're doing it. I'm blessed to be working in my freedom of purpose. My work is to educate, train, inspire, and lead entrepreneurs, to show them how to create a business they love. And sharing this video is part of that path for me. So thanks for being part of that. So those are the 4 freedoms, and it's really what drives me, and I suspect it's what drives you as well. Finally, there's this great big resources section in the Blueprint that covers all the tools that I use and recommend. So be sure to download it, open it up, and check it out. So that's the Product Launch Blueprint, or a really quick tour of it. Now, I didn't cover everything in the Blueprint. In fact, the first time I shot this video, I went through everything, and it ended up being like 90 minutes long. So I had to cut back and just hit the highlights and re-record for you. But remember, you can download the PDF and dig into all the details. There's a lot there. It's basically the blueprint of my work ever since I started in business in 1996. Remember, you don't need to know all of this or do all of this. Even my most advanced students, the ones who've done millions of dollars in launches, they pick and they choose which parts they're going to use. It's all about baby steps. It's all about getting into action. Remember, learning is great. Learners are earners, and you don't want to be too cool for school, but you also have to move into action. You need to start taking those baby steps. And I can tell you this, the formula works. It just works. You just have to follow it. It's worked for thousands of my students in just about any market you can think of, in just about any type of product you can think of, in just about anywhere in the world. And I gotta tell you, sharing these videos with you has been an amazing experience. I've had tens of thousands of people watch these videos and thousands of people leave comments, and the response has been, well, it's been almost overwhelming. I really love this business because of the huge impact I can make on so many entrepreneurs and the positive impact that they make on the world. Now, don't get me wrong, I love the lifestyle, the freedom, and the income that my business provides. But that impact is why I keep on pushing. So if you're ready to join me in that lifestyle and the income and the impact, I'm going to be opening up my next class in the Product Launch Formula Coaching Program in just a few days. And I would absolutely love for you to join me. Now, this is the way it works. It's sort of like a college class. I open up registration, we enroll a new class, and then we have to close registration so we can start the class. Now, my next video is going to be all about you moving forward, and I'll have lots of details about the upcoming Product Launch Formula class and how you can get started. So look for that video very soon. But in the meantime, I'd love to hear about your product launch path. Now that we've gone through the blueprint, what does your path forward look like? Scroll down and leave a comment for me. And hit that Facebook like button, but most important, leave a comment for me. I've been reading every comment and responding to dozens of them, and I'd love to hear from you.